All right, you beautiful bastards, buckle up. We're diving deep into some seriously legendary shit today. Apollo 11, the motherfucking moon landing. Forget the dusty history books. We're going for the juicy bits, the untold stories, and maybe bust some myths along the way. You with us?
Let's do this.
Hell yeah. So,
Yeah.
to set the stage.
It's more than just planting a flag on a big dusty rock. It's about Cold War tension,
Oh, yeah.
a race to prove who's got the bigger dick,
Damn right.
and three dudes who basically scared down death to take one small step for man and a giant leap for American pride.
We're talking about a time when the world was holding its breath, watching these crazy sons of bitches strap themselves to a giant firecracker and blast off to the goddamn moon. And it all went down during a pissing contest with the Soviets.
Exactly. Kennedy throws down the gauntlet, challenges the Soviets to a cosmic duel, and the stakes: global dominance. We're talking about more than just bragging rights. This was about proving that American ingenuity could beat those commie bastards at their own game.
So let's talk about these cowboys, Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins. This wasn't some buddy-buddy space adventure.
No.
These guys were more like amiable strangers, forced to work together to pull off the impossible.
You got that right. Armstrong, the quiet, focused commander, always in control. Aldrin, the brilliant engineer, but kind of an asshat, known for rubbing people the wrong way.
No.
And then there's Collins,
Right.
stuck orbiting the moon while the other two get to play in the lunar sandbox. Imagine the stories he could tell.
Seriously, being stuck up there all alone while your buddies are making history? That's got to mess with your head. But before we get to that, let's rewind a bit. While we were prepping for this epic moonshot, the Soviets were trying to steal our thunder with their Luna 15 probe. What a bunch of sneaky bastards.
They were desperate trying to upstage the Apollo mission by snagging lunar samples first. Talk about pressure. But like a bunch of clowns trying to juggle chainsaws, they screwed it up. Luna 15 went kaput, crashing into the moon just hours before Apollo 11 even launched. But cosmic karma, right?
Serves them right for trying to outshine the goddamn USA. But back to our guys. They had to pick a landing spot, a place to park their asses on the moon. You'd think they'd choose based on scientific importance, right?
Wrong.
Wrong.
Oh, yeah.
They went with a place called Site 2 in the Sea of Tranquility, mainly because it was flat clear of obstacles and, get this, looked good on TV.
Don't forget, this was the 60s, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Image was everything. Those grainy black and white images of the landing had to be iconic, had to show the world that America had the biggest balls in the space race. Science took a backseat to propaganda.
So picture this. Our boys are coming in hot, ready to make history, when suddenly the lunar module's computer starts freaking out. Program alarms are going off, shit's hitting the fan, and they're running low on fuel.
Those alarms, the infamous 1201 and 1202, nearly gave mission control a collective heart attack.
Oh, shit.
Turns out the rendezvous radar, which helps guide the lunar module back to the command module, was left on overloading the computer. Think of it like trying to run a dozen apps on your phone at once. It's going to crash, right?
So basically, someone screwed up and forgot to switch that shit off and nearly sent our heroes careening into a lunar crater. Talk about a clusterfuck.
But here's the thing. The computer was designed to be a badass. It prioritized tasks, shutting down less important functions to keep the landing on track. Thank God for smart computers, am I right?
Yeah, imagine the headlines. American heroes turned into moon dust because someone forgot to flip a switch. Not exactly a PR win.
No kidding. But back to the action. Armstrong, cool as a cucumber, takes manual control and steers that goddamn lunar module away from a giant crater and some serious moon boulders. They were literally seconds from becoming a permanent lunar monument.
They landed with barely any fuel left, didn't they? Talk about cutting it close.
Oh, yeah. Armstrong brought the Eagle down like a goddamn champion. It was a testament to his piloting skills and nerves of steel.
Speaking of nerves of steel, can you imagine stepping out onto the moon, knowing that billions of people are watching?
Absolutely. It was a mind-blowing moment, a giant leap for all of humanity.
One small step for man. One giant leap for mankind. Still gives me chills. Although some people say he flubbed the line and meant to say one small step for a man.
Right.
Either way, it's iconic.
And don't forget the political context. It was a direct hit to the Soviet ego, proof that America had the right stuff.
Damn right. But hey, it wasn't all about planting the flag and taking a giant piss on Soviet dreams.
Right.
They had a job to do right. Science experiments, collecting moon rocks, all that jazz.
Exactly. They set up a bunch of scientific instruments, including a seismometer to measure moonquakes and a laser reflector that we still use today to measure the distance between the Earth and the moon.
Talk about leaving your mark. They also grabbed some lunar samples, moon rocks, and soil, which Gave us a glimpse into the moon's history, really.
Exactly. And let's not forget the plaque they left behind. Here, men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind.
Yeah, all noble and shit. But, they were thinking, suck it, Soviets.
Well, it was a huge win for the U.S. in the space race. But leaving a message of peace was also a big deal. It showed that even in the midst of this Cold War dick-measuring contest, there was still a glimmer of hope for humanity.
All right, so Armstrong and Aldrin are busy playing lunar explorers, leaving their footprints in the moon dust. But what about Collins? Poor bastard was stuck up in the command module Columbia, all alone, circling the moon.
Actually, Collins was a total badass in his own right. He wasn't just twiddling his thumbs up there. He conducted experiments, monitored systems, and even had to deal with a fucked up coolant issue that could have screwed the whole mission.
Seriously. A coolant issue. That sounds like some scary shit.
It could have been a disaster, but Collins, the calm and collected motherfucker that he is, managed to troubleshoot the problem and keep the mission on track. Talk about holding your shit together under pressure.
Yeah, he was the unsung hero of Apollo 11. But let's get back to the main event. After their moonwalk, Armstrong and Aldrin had to blast off from the lunar surface and rendezvous with Collins in lunar orbit. I bet that was a pretty hairy maneuver.
You're telling me, imagine trying to dock 2 spacecraft while orbiting the moon. One wrong move, and those guys would have been lost in space forever.
So how did they pull it off? Was it like trying to parallel park a Winnebago in a hurricane?
It was a delicate operation, but these guys were pros.
Right.
They managed to dock successfully, and then it was time for the long journey back to Earth.
Back to Earth to face the music, the ticker tape parades, and the inevitable media circus.
Oh.
Can you imagine the culture shock?
Oh, absolutely. These
Okay.
guys went from being astronauts to global superstars overnight. They were treated like rock stars, showered with awards and accolades.
But wasn't all champagne and groupies,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they had to go through quarantine like they were bringing back some alien plague.
Yeah, they spent weeks locked up in a mobile quarantine facility just in case they had picked up some nasty moon germs. Imagine being cooped up after that epic adventure talk about anticlimactic.
I bet they were itching to get out and celebrate, tell their stories, and maybe even bang some supermodels.
I'm sure they had some wild stories to tell. But before we get into that, let's talk about one particular incident during their time on the moon that caused quite a stir back on Earth. Remember Buzz Aldrin, the engineer, who was also a devout Presbyterian?
Yeah, what about him? Did he lose his mind up there and start preaching to the lunar craters?
Not quite, but he did something pretty unexpected. He decided to celebrate communion on the goddamn moon.
No shit. A church service on the moon. Talk about taking your faith to a whole new level.
It wasn't a full-blown service, more like a private moment of reflection. He brought a little kit with bread and wine consecrated by his pastor back home.
So he was sipping communion wine while gazing at the earth. That's some trippy shit.
It was a pretty controversial move, actually. NASA was already in hot water with some atheist group who were pissed off about religious displays in space. Aldrin kept it hush-hush at the time to avoid a shitstorm.
Smart move. Can you imagine the headlines? Astronaut holds satanic ritual on the moon? The conspiracy theorists would have had a field day.
It would have been a PR nightmare. But even though he kept it quiet, Aldrin's lunar communion became a fascinating footnote in the Apollo 11 saga.
Yeah, it's like this weird clash of science and religion happening on the frickin' moon. It definitely adds another layer to the story. But hey, let's talk about the bigger picture here. What about those iconic images of Earth taken from the moon, that tiny blue marble hanging in the void?
Those images were game changers. They shifted our perspective, made us realize just how fragile and precious our planet is.
It's like looking in a mirror and realizing you're not the center of the universe.
Yeah.
Kind of humbling, right?
Absolutely. The Apollo missions, and those images in particular, had a huge impact on the environmental movement. It was like a wake-up call, showing us that we need to take care of this pale blue dot because it's the only home we got.
Yeah, it's like, holy shit, we're all in this together, folks. Let's not fuck it up.
Exactly. And that sense of unity, of shared responsibility, was a powerful message that resonated with people all over the world.
Okay, so we've covered the landing, the moonwalk, the near disasters, and even a little bit of lunar religion. But what about the aftermath? What happened to our heroes once they got back to Earth? Did they become instant celebrities, drowning in pussy and cocaine?
Well, they definitely got the hero treatment. Parades, medals, the whole 9 yards. They were global superstars, symbols of human achievement and American exceptionalism.
So they were living the high life, eh? Did it go to their heads? Did they start demanding bowls of M&Ms with all the brown ones removed?
It was a whirlwind for them, for sure. They traveled the world, met with presidents and kings, and were constantly in the spotlight.
But it wasn't all sunshine and roses, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they just experienced something that very few people ever will. Walking on the goddamn moon.
Yeah.
How do you even begin to process that?
It had to be a mind fuck coming back to Earth after such a profound experience. Imagine trying to explain it to someone who's never left this planet.
It's like trying to describe the taste of a strawberry to someone who's never eaten fruit. They just wouldn't get it.
Exactly. And some of the astronauts struggled to readjust to normal life. Some dealt with depression, others became recluses, while some turned to activism or public service.
Yeah, it's like, what do you do after walking on the moon? Go back to your boring desk job.
It had to be a difficult transition for sure, but their legacy endures. They'll always be remembered as the pioneers who dared to go where no one had gone before.
And they paved the way for future generations of explorers. But hey, before we get all sentimental, let's talk about the cultural impact of the moon landing. This wasn't just a scientific achievement, it was a global phenomenon.
You're absolutely right. The Apollo 11 mission captured the world's imagination. People were glued to their TVs, radios, and newspapers, eager to follow every detail of the mission. It was like the Super Bowl, the World Cup, and the Oscars all rolled into one.
It was like the whole world took a collective acid trip and landed on the moon together.
And the impact went far beyond the initial excitement. The moon landing inspired countless works of art, music, literature, and film. It fueled a fascination with space exploration that continues to this day.
It was like suddenly everyone wanted to be an astronaut, a scientist, or at least build a rocket in their backyard.
The Apollo program, and the moon landing in particular, had a profound effect on education, inspiring countless young people to pursue careers in STEM fields.
It was a wake-up call for America, showing us that we could achieve great things when we work together toward a common goal.
And it was a message of hope for the world, demonstrating that even in the midst of the Cold War, humanity could unite in the pursuit of a shared dream.
Okay, so it was a big deal, a giant leap for mankind, blah, blah, blah. But let's be real. Most people have probably forgotten about the moon landing by now. It's ancient history, like the Roman Empire or bell-bottoms.
I disagree. The legacy of Apollo 11 continues to resonate today. It's a reminder that humanity is capable of achieving extraordinary things when we set our minds to it. It's a testament to the power of human ambition, ingenuity, and collaboration.
Yeah, I get it. It was a historic moment. But what about the future? Are we ever going back to the moon? Or is that just a pipe dream like flying cars and world peace?
Well, there's definitely renewed interest in lunar exploration. NASA's Artemis program aims to establish a sustainable presence on the moon with the ultimate goal of sending humans to Mars.
So we're talking moon bases, lunar rovers, maybe even a moon McDonald's.
Perhaps not a McDonald's just yet, but the possibilities are pretty mind-blowing. We could mine resources on the moon, conduct scientific research, and even use it as a launching pad for missions deeper into space.
It sounds ambitious, but hey, if we can land a man on the moon with 1960s technology, imagine what we can do now.
Exactly. The future of space exploration is full of potential, and who knows what wonders await us out there in the vastness of the cosmos.
Maybe we'll even find those frickin' Nazi moon bases that the conspiracy theorists are always raving about.
Let's stick to the more scientifically plausible scenarios for now.
Right, fine, party pooper. But speaking of the dark side of the moon, there's one interesting thing that I haven't mentioned yet. It turns out that the far side of the moon, the side that never faces Earth, is a treasure trove of scientific mysteries. It's a completely different environment than the near side.
It is.
And you know what? We'll get into that right after a quick break.
Sounds good. It turns out that the far side of the moon, the side that never faces Earth, is a treasure trove of scientific mysteries. It's a completely different environment than the near side.
Hold on, back up a sec. Why the hell is there a far side of the moon anyway? Shouldn't it spin around like a goddamn disco ball showing off all its sides?
Well, it does spin, but it spins at the same rate that it orbits Earth. That's called synchronous rotation, which means we only ever see one face of the moon. It's like a creepy stalker always watching us, but never showing its true face.
That's some freaky cosmic coincidence, man.
Man.
So what's so special about this hidden side of the moon? Is it where they're hiding all the alien bases?
Not quite, but it's definitely weirder than the near side. For starters, it's got a thicker crust and almost no Maria, those dark flat plains we see on the near side. It's also pockmarked with craters like a cosmic punching bag.
So basically, it's the ugly stepsister of the moon, all battered and bruised.
You could say that. But it's that ugliness that makes it so fascinating to scientists. The far side is like a time capsule, preserving a record of the early solar system's bombardment phase when asteroids and comets were raining down on everything.
So by studying this beat-up side of the moon, we can learn about the solar system's wild teenage years when it was all about smashing shit up.
Exactly. It's a window into the past, a way to understand how our planet and the moon were shaped by these cosmic collisions.
Okay, that's pretty cool. But, speaking of those grainy images, there's this persistent myth that the whole moon landing was faked. A Hollywood production staged in some desert backlot.
Oh, yeah, I've heard those conspiracy theories. Some people believe we never actually went to the moon, that it was all government propaganda to win the Cold War. What a load of bullshit.
True bullshit.
But it's interesting how these conspiracy theories persist even in the face of overwhelming evidence.
Right.
It says a lot about our tendency to distrust authority and embrace alternative narratives, even if they're completely bonkers.
Yeah, some people just love a good conspiracy theory, even if it makes them look like complete asshats. But let's get back to reality. Remember how I mentioned Aldrin almost screwed the pooch by breaking a crucial circuit breaker?
Oh, yeah, that was a close one. They were prepping for their moonwalk, all suited up and ready to go, when Aldrin accidentally bumped a circuit breaker with his backpack.
Oh, shit.
This was the breaker that controlled the engine for liftoff from the moon.
Hold on, you're telling me that they could have been stranded on the moon because of a busted switch? Talk about a cosmic cock-up.
It was a serious oh shit moment. They were millions of miles from home, depending on this one tiny switch to get them back.
So what did they do? Did they have a backup switch? A spare part?
Not exactly, but Aldrin, being the resourceful engineer that he was, managed to fix the damn thing with a felt-tip pen. Can you believe that shit? A goddamn pen saved the day.
MacGyver on the moon. That's some serious ingenuity right there. It's amazing how they managed to improvise and overcome these technical challenges with limited resources. They were like the ultimate space cowboys figuring shit out on the fly.
Absolutely. It speaks to their training, their problem-solving skills, and their ability to stay calm under pressure.
So they fixed the busted switch, fired up the engine, and blasted off from the moon, leaving behind their footprints and a whole lot of conspiracy theories. But their adventure wasn't over yet, right? They still had to rendezvous with Collins in lunar orbit and make the long journey back to Earth. And while they were busy doing all that, the Soviets were still trying to get their grubby hands on some moon rocks. Remember that Luna 15 probe that crashed earlier?
Oh yeah, those persistent bastards.
Well, as Armstrong and Aldrin were lifting off from the lunar surface, Luna 15 was also making its descent towards the moon. The Soviets were making a last-ditch effort to beat the Americans, attempting a daring sample grab before Apollo 11 returned to Earth.
They really were.
So there were two spacecraft trying to land on the moon at the same time. Talk about a cosmic traffic jam.
It was a tense moment, to say the least. But once again, the Soviets snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Luna 15 ended up crashing into the moon just a couple of hours before Armstrong and Aldrin launched from the surface.
Those poor bastards couldn't catch a break, could they? It's like the universe itself was conspiring against them.
It's pretty ironic, isn't it? They spent years and billions of rubles trying to upstage the Americans, only to have their dreams go up in smoke, literally.
Talk about adding insult to injury. But hey, at least they got some cool footage of their probe crashing into the moon, right? Every cloud has a silver lining.
I suppose so. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about something a bit more personal.
Ooh. You mean like Aldrin's secret stash of space porn?
Not quite. Remember how we talked about the psychological impact of the mission, how these guys had to deal with the weight of their experience?
Yeah, walking on the moon, becoming global celebrities. It's gotta mess with your head, right?
Absolutely. And for Collins, the guy who was stuck orbiting the moon while his buddies were making history, it was a particularly unique and isolating experience. He later described it as a feeling of awareness, anticipation, satisfaction, confidence, almost exultation.
Hold on, exultation. That doesn't sound like the words of a guy who was stuck all alone while his friends were having all the fun.
Right. You'd expect him to be pissed off, maybe a little resentful. But Collins had a different perspective. He understood the importance of his role, and he embraced the solitude.
So he was like a cosmic monk meditating in his lunar orbit.
In a way, yes. He had time to contemplate his place in the universe, to reflect on the fragility of life, and to appreciate the beauty of our planet from a completely different perspective.
That's deep, man. It's like he had this profound spiritual awakening while circling the goddamn moon.
It was a transformative experience for him, for sure. And it highlights the fact that the Apollo 11 mission wasn't just about scientific exploration. It was also about human exploration, about pushing the boundaries of our own understanding.
Yeah, it's like they went to the moon and came back with a whole new perspective on life, the universe, and everything.
Exactly. And that's what makes the Apollo program so fascinating. It was about so much more than just winning a space race. It was about pushing the limits of human ingenuity, courage, and imagination.
And it gave us a glimpse of what we're capable of achieving when we set our minds to it. But let's be real, it wasn't all philosophical musings and cosmic enlightenment, right? These guys were still human with all the flaws and complexities that come with it.
Oh, absolutely. And that brings us to another interesting anecdote from the mission. Remember how we talked about Aldrin's lunar communion? Well, it turns out he wasn't the only one with secrets.
Oh, spill a tea, space guru. What other shenanigans were these astronauts up to?
Well, it seems that Armstrong, the stoic commander himself, was a bit of a rule breaker. He actually smuggled some personal items onto the lunar module without permission.
No shit. What kind of contraband are we talking about here? A flask of whiskey? A Playboy magazine?
Not quite that exciting. He brought a piece of fabric from the Wright Flyer, the first successful airplane, and a piece of wood from the propeller.
Hold on. He risked his neck, went to the goddamn moon, and all he brought back was some old airplane parts.
It might seem strange, but it was a symbolic gesture. Armstrong saw a connection between the Wright brothers' pioneering spirit and the Apollo program.
So he was like a space geek paying homage to his aviation heroes.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even these larger-than-life astronauts were still human with their own personal connections to history and their own motivations for pushing the boundaries of exploration.
Yeah, it's like a reminder that behind all the technology and the scientific achievements, there were still these guys, these flawed and fascinating individuals who dared to dream the impossible and then went out and did it. But hey, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the Soviets.
Ah, yes, the ever-present rivals. While the Americans were celebrating their lunar triumph, the Soviets were licking their wounds and trying to figure out their next move.
Did they ever admit defeat in the space race?
Not publicly. They downplayed the significance of the moon landing, claiming that their focus was on building space stations and conducting scientific research.
So they basically tried to spin it as if they weren't even interested in going to the moon in the first place. What a bunch of sore losers.
They were definitely trying to save face, but behind closed doors, they were scrambling to catch up. They continued their lunar program for a few more years, but they never managed to land a man on the moon.
I guess some dreams are just meant to be shattered, especially when you're competing against the goddamn USA.
True, but even during the Cold War, there were moments of cooperation and collaboration between the two superpowers. Remember those medals that the Apollo 11 crew left on the moon?
Yeah, the ones for the fallen Soviet cosmonauts.
Exactly. It was a gesture of respect, a recognition that both sides had lost brave men in the pursuit of space exploration.
It's like even in the midst of this ideological war, they could still acknowledge the shared sacrifices and the human cost of this cosmic quest.
And let's not forget the silicon disk with messages of peace from global leaders that they also left on the moon. It was a symbolic gesture, a message in a bottle for future generations, or maybe even for extraterrestrial civilizations.
Or maybe just a bunch of cosmic litter.
Well, that's one way to look at it,
Yeah.
but it was a hopeful message nonetheless.
All right, so we've talked about the astronauts, the Soviets, the science, the politics, even a little bit of religion and philosophy. But let's not forget about the unsung heroes of the Apollo program. The engineers, the technicians, the mathematicians, the countless individuals who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make this impossible dream a reality.
Absolutely. They were the backbone of the mission, the unsung heroes who deserve just as much credit as the astronauts themselves.
These were the guys who were crunching numbers, building rockets, and holding their breath every time that goddamn Saturn V lifted off.
Without their dedication, their expertise, and their willingness to push the boundaries of what was possible, the moon landing wouldn't have happened.
It's a testament to human ingenuity, to the power of collaboration, and to the sheer audacity of dreaming big and then going out and doing it. But hey, enough with the feel-good bullshit. Let's talk about the dark side of the moon.
What about?
You know, the conspiracy theories, the rumors of alien bases, the whole shebang. Is there anything to it?
Let's perhaps stick to the more scientifically plausible scenarios for now. But speaking of the dark side of the moon, there is one interesting thing that I haven't mentioned yet. It turns out that the far side of the moon, the side that never faces Earth, is a treasure trove of scientific mysteries. It's a completely different environment than the near side.
Hold on, back up a sec. Why the hell is there a far side of the moon anyway? Shouldn't it spin around like a goddamn disco ball showing off all its sides?
Well, it does spin, but it spins at the same rate that it orbits Earth. That's called synchronous rotation, which means we only ever see one face of the moon. It's like a creepy stalker, always watching us, but never showing its true face.
That's some freaky cosmic coincidence, man. So what's so special about this hidden side of the moon? Is it where they're hiding all the alien bases?
Not quite, but it's definitely weirder than the near side. For starters, it's got a thicker crust and almost no Maria, those dark, flat plains we see on the near side. It's also pockmarked with craters, like a cosmic punching bag.
So basically, it's the ugly stepsister of the moon, all battered and bruised.
You could say that, but it's that ugliness that makes it so fascinating to scientists. The far side is a time capsule preserving a record of the early solar system's bombardment phase when asteroids and comets were raining down on everything.
So by studying this beat-up side of the moon, we can learn about the solar system's wild teenage years, when it was all about smashing shit up.
Exactly. It's a window into the past, a way to understand how our planet and the moon were shaped by these cosmic collisions.
Okay, that's pretty cool. But let's get back to Apollo 11. Was it all worth it? I mean, it was a huge gamble, a massive investment of time and resources. Did we actually gain anything from it besides some bragging rights and a few moon rocks?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Was it just a Cold War dick measuring contest, or did it represent something more profound?
Yeah, like what did we actually get out of it? Did it actually push humanity forward?
The technological advancements alone were significant. Think about it. In less than a decade, we went from barely being able to launch a satellite into orbit to landing a man on the goddamn moon. That's some insane progress.
So basically, the space race forced us to innovate at warp speed. We had to invent new materials, develop new technologies, and push the boundaries of what was possible just to stay ahead of those commie bastards.
Exactly. And those advancements had ripple effects across other industries. The Apollo program led to the development of microchips, computer software, communication satellites, and countless other technologies that we take for granted today.
So basically, our smartphones, our GPS, even the internet, owe a debt of gratitude to the Apollo program. That's pretty mind-blowing.
It's true. But beyond the technological advancements, there's also the intangible legacy of the moon landing, the inspiration, the sense of wonder, the expansion of human knowledge and understanding.
Yeah, but is that enough? I mean, we haven't been back to the moon in over 50 years. Are we ever going back, or is that just a pipe dream, like flying cars and world peace?
Oh, there's definitely renewed interest in lunar exploration. NASA's Artemis program is aiming to establish a sustainable presence on the moon with the ultimate goal of sending humans to Mars.
So we're talking moon bases, lunar rovers, maybe even a lunar Starbucks.
Perhaps not a Starbucks just yet, but the possibilities are pretty mind-blowing. We could mine resources on the moon, conduct scientific research, and even use it as a launching pad for missions deeper into space.
It's like the moon is our stepping stone to the rest of the solar system, a cosmic gas station, where we can refuel and restock before heading out to conquer the galaxy.
Exactly. The future of space exploration is full of potential, and who knows what wonders await us out there in the vastness of the cosmos.
All right, fine. Well, folks, there you have it. The Apollo 11 mission, a tale of triumph, near disaster, and a whole lot of lunar dust. It was a hell of a ride, and it's a story that continues to inspire and amaze us. Who knows what the future holds for space exploration? Maybe we'll be sipping Tang cocktails on Mars or setting up shop on some distant moon. But one thing's for sure, the human spirit of adventure and discovery is alive and well, and that's something worth celebrating. Until next time, you magnificent bastards, keep your eyes on the stars,